if we have a look, and Ron touched on it, what's happening with wild rivers in the north. Another river basin recently, the Wenlock Basin, was declared wild by the Queensland Government. This decision was welcomed by the Wilderness Society and Terry Irwin, who was gifted a cattle property in the pristine area by the Howard Government. Now, she brought an application in the Land Court last year to stop a proposed bauxite mine, and that application failed. But now, unfortunately, the government has declared the Wenlock Basin a wild river, and it appears that that bauxite mine will fail. So we can understand why the Wilderness Society think wild rivers is a good idea, but now we can understand why Terry Irwin does as well. So most of you would have heard the reaction of Noel Pearson to the latest declaration. For those of you who didn't, I'll set out some of it. The column Noel wrote for the Weekend Australia on June 5th. Bligh chose this year's 18th anniversary of the High Court decision on native title in the Mabo case to make a fourth declaration of the Wenlock River north of Weipa. The timing reveals the level of respect Bligh and her ministers hold for Aboriginal people and their rights in land. The Anglican Church did a report, and this is the sort of support the Wild Rivers campaign, at least in the Cape's getting. The Anglican Church did a report on the impact, the social impact of the wild rivers on Aboriginal people in the north. And that report found that the wild rivers legislation negatively impacted the well-being of Indigenous people within the areas. It reduces the ability of Cape York Indigenous communities to engage with the real economy, which is something that Noel Pearson has been campaigning for a lot of years. There's no real jobs up there other than mining and a little bit of agriculture. So those people up there are dependent on welfare and have been for a number of generations, and it doesn't appear that's going to change. And I'm aware that PRA's provided financial support to Noel's campaign this year, and I'd urge that support to continue. They recently brought an application in the High Court to have the Wild Rivers Act declared invalid. That's yet to be heard. And we see again that if you want to have a look to see who the real fighters have been for property rights in the last 30 years, it's the Aboriginals. We are a long, long, long way behind, because I think we thought our property rights were safe. Now we're no different. So there's two reasons why, and I've said this last year and I'll say it again, there's two reasons why the Wild Rivers fight and Noel Pearson's is the same as yours. The first one is, 15 or 16 years ago, John Purcell, who's sitting down there, and other members of the Cattlemen's Union did the Cape York Heads of Agreement with the Cape York Aboriginal people and the Wilderness Society. That agreement's been trashed by the Wilderness Society. They knifed Noel Pearson's model, and they knifed you lot as well. And the other frightening reason why the Wild Rivers fight that Pearson's in is yours as well, is because they're planning to do it in far western Queensland in the Cooper Basin. As to the extent of it, I'm not real sure what they're going to declare, but if the people out there think that a declaration of wild rivers will be the end of their problems, they're sadly mistaken. It's just the beginning. If they think that at some stage grazing in the Channel Country won't be subjected to very, very close scrutiny, well, they're wrong. We can see that from the vegetation management legislation. 10 years ago, it was only going to be endangered, and freehold would never be, and regrowth would never be touched. Now we know that was wrong. You cannot satisfy these people by appeasement. They are rapacious. Every year they want a bit more. There's an excellent paper down on the back table there that I'd urge you to read about how they ran the tree clearing campaign. They are very, very well drilled, very well financed, and they'll, in essence, stop at nothing to get their way. What they want is total control over what you do on your land, and they're very nearly there. So might have painted a bit of a stark picture of what's going on as far as property rights and land management in this state, but generally in this country, but that is the blunt reality. It is getting worse and worse every year. And last year there was a group formed called Life Force, which I understand folded the other day, which is a sad situation, but it gives one lesson, and that is the amount of money it costs to run these sorts of organisations. PRA, compared for instance to the Wilderness Society or the World Wildlife Fund, runs on an absolute shoestring. These other groups who are opposed to you are very, very well financed and utterly ruthless. Now, Life Force ran for about a year, and I'm not sure how much money it cost them to run for a year, but it was a lot. Just to run a website, just to have an office, just to have a presence on TV every so often costs a vast amount of money, and these people on the other side have got it and they continue to get it. So, as far as PRA's efforts with the very small amount of money that's going through this organisation is quite remarkable. And I'd urge you to keep up the fight. Otherwise, there will be no end to it, and you'll end up really just being serfs on your own land. That's about all I have to say.